What kind of idiots actually pay him? Dad mocked my career. There will be no more transfers. I hit send. 6 months later, my sister reached out. I never thought I'd be the one to break our family. The destruction came so quietly at first. A crack, then another, until everything we'd built lay in ruins at my feet. I'm 27 years old, and I've been supporting my family financially since I was 19, not that they'd ever truly acknowledge it, especially not my father. The morning everything changed began like any other. Sun streaming through half-closed blinds, the soft hum of my computer fans, the gentle ping of donation alerts from my overnight stream. My success still felt surreal sometimes. 5 million followers across platforms, sponsorship deals with major tech companies, a comfortable apartment in the city, all from playing games and connecting with an audience that somehow found me entertaining. My father called it playing pretend for a living, a child's occupation, not real work. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from my mother, a text from my sister Qley asking when I'd be transferring this month's money, nothing unusual there. My stomach clenched, the familiar sensation of being needed only for what I could provide. Never for who I was, I ignored it, turned instead to my morning routine. Coffee, emails, content planning, the rhythm of my real life, the one they refused to understand. A notification interrupted my focus. A message from my oldest viewer and now moderator. "Henry, you need to see this. Now." A link followed. My heart stuttered as I clicked it. What had happened? Channel strike? Platform controversy? The usual anxieties of content creators flickered through my mind. Nothing prepared me for what loaded on my screen. My father's voice first, booming, dismissive. He sits there playing video games all day like a child, and people actually pay him. What kind of idiots waste money watching someone else play games? The camera panned. My mother's kitchen, our family home. My sister Qley filmed secretly from what looked like the doorway. My father was at the table with my mother, both laughing. "At least he's good for something," my father continued. "His little internet hobby pays our bills." My mother slapped his arm playfully. "Greg, stop, he works hard." But she was smiling, that smile that never reached her eyes when defending me. My sister's voice behind the camera. "Dad, tell us again about how Henry thinks he has a real job." More laughter, my father's impression of me. Hunched shoulders, mimicking clicking a mouse frantically, making childish sound effects. "Look at me, I'm a professional gamer, so important. Meanwhile, I've never done an honest day's work in my life." The video continued for 3 excruciating minutes. Each second burned into my consciousness like acid. The family I supported, financially, emotionally, completely, mocking the very thing that allowed them to live comfortably. The video had 30,000 views, posted by Qley on her small social account with the caption, "When your brother thinks streaming is a career," my hands trembled, blood pounding in my ears. A strange calm descended over me like a shroud. 8 years of supporting them, 8 years of monthly transfers, paying off my parents' mortgage, funding Qley's college education, emergency medical bills, new cars, vacations, all while enduring their thinly veiled contempt for my career choice. I'd known somewhere deep inside how they truly felt, but seeing it displayed so nakedly, shared publicly for others to laugh at, something shattered inside me, irreparably. My phone buzzed again, my mother. "Henry, honey, when can we expect this month's transfer? Dad and I are planning that Alaskan cruise we talked about." The one they'd mentioned once in passing. The one I'd never agreed to fund. The entitlement sliced through me like a blade. I set the phone down, let it buzz until it fell silent. What had I been to them all these years? An ATM with a pulse. A resource to be tapped whenever needed while being ridiculed behind closed doors and now apparently in public. Something shifted inside me, a resolve crystallizing like ice in my veins. No more. I opened my banking app, stared at the shared emergency account I'd established for family needs. $87,000, my money, all of it. I transferred it to my private account, every cent. Then I drafted a simple email, attached the video link, added only one line, "There will be no more transfers, ever." I hit send, turned off notifications, walked to my balcony and stood in the morning air, breathing deeply as though surfacing from deep water. For the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. The storm, of course, was coming. I knew that. But in this moment of clarity, I finally understood what had eluded me for years. I didn't need their approval. I never had. They needed my money, not the other way around. The realization filled me with a strange, hollow power. My phone exploded with notifications within minutes of the email. Calls, texts, voicemails. I ignored them all. Instead, I streamed that evening as scheduled, smiled, interacted with my community, not a word about the family crisis unfolding in my message inbox. This part of my life was mine. They had no place in it anymore. 3 days passed in this strange limbo. I blocked their numbers after the first day, changed my email, instructed building security not to allow them up if they appeared. On the 4th day, the buzzer rang, insistent, angry. "Your father is here. He's quite agitated. Should I send him up?" My heart hammered against my ribs, flight response kicking in hard, but I was done running. "Yes, send him up." The minutes waiting for his arrival stretched endlessly. Each heartbeat a countdown, blood rushing in my ears. The knock came. 3 hard raps that seemed to shake the door on its hinges. When I opened it, my father stood there, face flushed with a familiar anger. The same expression I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. The one that had once made me cower. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" He pushed past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. I closed the door quietly, controlled. "Hello to you too, Dad." He spun to face me, jabbing a finger toward my chest. "Don't get smart with me. What's this nonsense about cutting us off? Your mother is beside herself." I saw the video. His face flickered. Confusion, then recognition, then dismissal. That was just a joke. Qley was just having fun. You know how she is." My chest tightened. The casual way he brushed it off made something inside me crack wider. "A joke, I see." My voice sounded strange even to my own ears, too calm. And the 30,000 people who viewed it, were they in on the joke too? He waved his hand dismissively. "Don't be so sensitive. This is what's wrong with your generation. Everything's an offense. Everything's a trauma. You mocked my career, my life choices, the very thing that's been putting food on your table for 8 years. "Oh, come on," he scoffed. "You sit at home playing video games. It's barely a job. I'm one of the top earners in my field. I've built a business that supports not just myself, but an entire family that contributes nothing in return." His face darkened. "We're your family. That's how family works. You support each other." "Support goes both ways, Dad. When have you ever supported me?" He faltered for a moment, just long enough to reveal the truth. "We put a roof over your head for 18 years. I laughed, couldn't help it. "The bare minimum required by law, and I've been repaying that basic parental obligation tenfold since I moved out." "So what, now you're too good for us? Think you don't need family anymore now that you've got all your internet friends?" The contempt in his voice when he said internet friends hit a familiar nerve. But this time, instead of shame, I felt rage crystallize inside me. "Those internet friends have shown me more respect and support than you ever have." His eyes narrowed. "So that's it. You're choosing them over your real family?" "I'm choosing myself for the first time." He stared at me like I'd suddenly started speaking another language. The concept seemed completely foreign to him. "What about the cruise your mother was planning? We've already put down the deposit." The sheer entitlement stole my breath for a moment. "Not my problem. Not your," he sputtered. "We're your parents, and I'm your son, not your bank." We stood there in the silence that followed. 2 men who shared blood but suddenly realized they were strangers. His face shifted. A calculation happening behind his eyes, the anger morphing into something more tactical. "Your mother will be devastated. Is that what you want? To break her heart?" The guilt trip. His most effective weapon throughout my childhood, but it bounced off me now, unable to find purchase. "Mom will be fine once she realizes she'll need to budget like a normal person." "And Qley, what about her tuition for next semester?" "Qley is 24 with a completed undergraduate degree. If she wants a master's, she can get loans like everyone else." His facade cracked further, desperation seeping through. "You can't just cut us off. We have bills, expenses. So does everyone get a job?" The words hung between us, simple, direct. and completely shattering the dynamic we'd established for years. My father's face contorted. "You ungrateful little after everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Name one thing in the last 8 years." He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. In that silence lay the truth of our relationship, crystal clear for the first time. "I think you should leave now. This isn't over," he hissed, moving toward the door. "You'll regret this. Family is everything. No, self-respect is everything. I just wish I'd learned that sooner." The door slammed behind him with enough force to rattle the frame. I stood motionless in the sudden quiet of my apartment, waiting for the guilt to come crashing down. It didn't. Instead, a strange lightness filled my chest, like something heavy had been lifted away after years of crushing weight. I walked to my computer, sat down, looked at the stream setup that had built my life, the life they had mocked so thoroughly. For the first time, I felt no need to justify it. To anyone, I went live earlier than scheduled that evening. My community immediately noticed something different about me. The chat was filled with questions, concerns. "You seem different tonight. Everything okay?" I considered deflecting as usual, keeping my personal life separate, but something had shifted fundamentally inside me. "I made a big life decision today," I told my audience. "Set some boundaries that were long overdue. It feels right." Support flooded the chat. No questions, no demands for details, just pure encouragement from thousands of people who had chosen to spend their time with me. My real family in many ways. 3 weeks passed. The silence from my blood relatives was both painful and healing, like a deep wound finally exposed to air after festering beneath a bandage. Qley tried reaching out once, demanding rather than asking for tuition money. When I didn't respond, she sent a series of increasingly angry texts accusing me of abandoning the family. I didn't engage. There was nothing more to say. Then came the notification. A small, seemingly insignificant ping that made my stomach drop. An alert from my bank about unusual activity on the emergency account I'd forgotten to close completely. My parents had somehow accessed it, withdrawn the few $100s that had accumulated from automatic transfers, left it empty. The final confirmation that I'd made the right decision. I closed the account permanently, cut the last financial tie. My mother called from an unknown number that evening. I almost didn't answer. Something made me pick up. "Henry, please don't hang up." Her voice sounded small, fragile in a way I'd never heard before. "I'm listening." A pause. "We need your help. Your father, he's too proud to ask, but things are difficult right now." My heart ached despite everything. This was my mother, the woman who had read me bedtime stories, who had bandaged my skinned knees, who had also stood by while my father belittled me for years. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said carefully, "but I'm not in a position to help anymore. But we're family." The same refrain, the same expectation. Family respects each other, supports each other's choices, doesn't mock each other publicly for entertainment. She sighed. "That video was a mistake. Qley knows that now." "Has she taken it down?" Another pause. "Well, no, but..." "Then it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice, one with consequences." "Henry, please, we're struggling here. We need you." The words I'd longed to hear for years. Acknowledgement of my importance. But it came attached only to what I could provide, not who I was. "I'm sorry, Mom. I truly am, but I can't do this anymore." Her voice hardened slightly, the fragility disappearing. "So that's it. Years of family bonds thrown away over one little video." "It wasn't the video. It was what the video revealed, what it confirmed about how you all see me. That's not fair. Neither was using me as an ATM while mocking the very work that funded your lifestyle." The silence stretched between us, a chasm too wide to bridge with platitudes. "I'll always be your son," I said finally, "but the financial support is over, permanently." I heard her inhale sharply. "Your father was right. That internet fame has changed you." "No, it showed me my worth when my own family couldn't." I ended the call, set the phone down gently, waited for the crushing guilt to descend. It didn't come. 6 months passed. Seasons changed. My career flourished further. A major platform signed me to an exclusive deal worth more than I'd ever imagined possible. The irony wasn't lost on me. The not a real job had made me financially secure for life. I bought a house, adopted a dog, built a life that was authentically mine. The family-shaped hole remained, of course. Certain moments triggered the ache of absence. Holidays, birthdays, random Tuesday evenings when a memory would surface unexpectedly. But the wound was healing, slowly, cleanly, without the infection of resentment that had poisoned it for so long. Qley reached out once more, a surprisingly humble message that acknowledged her part in the rift, not quite an apology but closer than I'd expected. "I miss my brother," she wrote. "The video was stupid and mean. I was jealous of your success and wanted Dad's approval. I'm sorry." I responded carefully, thanked her for reaching out, suggested we might get coffee sometime. No promises of financial support, no return to the old dynamic. A tentative first step toward something new, something healthier. My parents remained silent, perhaps too proud, perhaps simply unable to adjust to the new reality where their son was not their personal source of funding. I found I could live with that uncertainty. Their absence hurt less than their presence had. The most unexpected change was within myself. The constant need for validation from them, from audiences, from anyone, had diminished significantly. I streamed because I enjoyed it, connected with my community because they mattered to me, made content because it fulfilled me creatively, not to prove my worth to a father who would never see it. 1 year to the day after cutting ties, I received a small package. No return address, but postmarked from my hometown. Inside, a thumb drive and a note in my mother's handwriting. "I thought you should have this. I'm sorry it took me so long to understand." The drive contained a single video file. My hands trembled slightly as I clicked play. My father sitting alone at the kitchen table, looking older, diminished somehow. "I don't know if you'll ever see this," he began, voice rough. "Your mother thinks I should record it. Maybe someday you might be willing to hear me out." He cleared his throat, looked directly at the camera with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "I was wrong about you, Henry, wrong about your career, wrong about a lot of things." He ran a hand through his thinning hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. "The truth is, I never understood what you were building. I was jealous, if I'm being honest. Jealous that you found success doing something you loved while I spent 40 years at a job I hated." His eyes glistened, something I'd never seen before. "I took it out on you, made you feel small because I felt small, used your success while belittling how you achieved it. It was unfair, cruel even." He swallowed hard. "I'm not asking for your money or even your forgiveness, just wanted you to know that I was wrong, and I'm sorry." The video ended. No dramatic conclusion, no sweeping music, just my father's face, vulnerable in a way I'd never witnessed before. I sat in the stillness of my home office, the same room where I'd first seen the video that ended our relationship, now watching another that might possibly begin healing it, not erasing the past, not pretending the hurt never happened, but acknowledging it, numbing it, taking responsibility. I didn't respond immediately. Some wounds need time, even after an apology is offered. But I saved his video. And for the first time in a year, I allowed myself to remember the good moments, too. Fishing trips when I was young. The proud smile when I graduated high school. Small kindnesses buried beneath years of criticism. Not enough to erase the hurt, but enough to consider that people, even parents, can grow, can recognize their failures, can change. I don't know if we'll ever fully repair what was broken. Some fractures leave permanent marks. But sitting here now, a year and a half after that devastating morning, I understand something I couldn't see then. Cutting ties wasn't about punishment. It was about valuing myself enough to demand respect. Sometimes the greatest act of love for yourself and for others is to establish boundaries that cannot be crossed. To say, this is where I end and you begin. This is what I will accept and what I won't. My career continues to flourish. My community grows. The life I've built feels increasingly solid beneath my feet. And if someday that life includes some version of my family, one that respects who I am rather than what I can provide, I might be open to it. But I'll never again shrink myself to fit into someone else's expectations. Never again fund my own diminishment. That version of Henry is gone. In his place stands someone stronger, someone who finally understands that real family, whether bound by blood or by choice, lifts you up rather than tears you down. And that's a lesson worth every painful moment it took to learn.